All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law, November 27th. Yeah, 27th, 2023. I hope everybody had a happy holiday there. And I spent mine all alone by myself at home, nice and quiet. Did some reading and studying, which I've been doing for the last couple weeks. Pretty burnt out there. But whew, let me tell you, it's been a blur. Lots and lots of reading, trying to find stuff, this, that, and the other. What's going on here? Why is it not showing? Oh, it's got to be bigger. Diesel D's, good to see you, brother. Good to see everybody over here on Telegram. How's everybody doing over there? Audio coming through good everywhere? Hi, CC. How you doing? What's the room temperature in Alaska up there, CC? We're down to a little bit chilly here the last few days. It's winter setting in. A little snow on the upper mountains there, and where are we at here? Huh? Right at freezing right now, 32 degrees. We've been dipping down into the low 20s, teens. It's been chilly. Chili burger. And of course, then there's those out there that went south for the winter. Corruption detector, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Tiger. All right, Diesel D's, thanks for the audio check out there. So good. You got snow in Chicago. Yeah, all the northernish states. Get ready. I think it's coming. Yeah, I call them snowbirds. Head south for the winter. They don't like the snow. So some very, very interesting stuff that I have come across there in Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England, and being that they, at least the Supreme Court, right, and some of these other ones are really referencing and going back to Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England. Given the time that this particular commentary was written, what was it, 17? Oh, where did I have that at? I want to say it was 1764. 1765 through 1769. So right just as we just did a little separation there. And it's a wonder why that was written at that particular time. Maybe to just show the king how corrupt he really was. Yeah, I don't know. Quite a coincidence, though, right? So, without further ado, well, actually, before we get into Blackstone's here, pretty interesting things out there. I haven't really been able to pay a whole lot of attention, but I was talking to my buddy there, Tony, out of California, the other Tony, and he was mentioning something about some people were saying that people have, like public servants and stuff, have come up missing recently. Like an entire county of officials. In the middle of the night, boom, next day they're gone. People are waking up and nobody's showing up for work, public servants wise. I was made aware of some of this stuff that was going on starting clear back in December of 2021. So almost 2 years ago. And I was telling you folks back then that indictments were being unsealed and people were being arrested here in America. It's starting to trickle down, and I think it's going to start happening a little bit more and more and more as we progress. It's cleanup time. I'm telling you folks, it's coming. So many people are still stuck on the nothing's happening. No, I don't believe any of it. Again, there's going to come a time here where it's going to be a bunch of I told you so's. I've already put out the one where I did a bunch of I told you so's with Jan Halper. So, buckle up, buttercups, because it's coming. Which leads us right back into, what are we going to do? What are we, the people, going to do? Again, back to what Trump said in his inauguration speech, January 20th, 2017. I'm putting the power back into the people's hands. That power is all political power, which is inherent in the people. The people are the sovereign. The people in creating the instruments of government delegate sovereignty. They are not the sovereign. So, totally agree with that whole sovereign citizen crap, because servants aren't sovereign. The masters are. And the masters are the people. And we delegate certain powers, a very limited form of government here. Nah, I highly doubt the train carrying all them tanks and stuff. Nothing to do with us. 4th Marine Tanker Division, where I was stationed out here at Gown Field. We don't use tanks here in town. Okay? These are special ops in the middle of the night. I'm knocking on people's door at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And just nab people. Plain and simple. Again, this is military operations, folks. A lot of people do not understand the power of the military and what the military is actually for. Even though I've laid it out quite a few times, and then there's that man out there, Derek Johnson, who lays out some stuff. Okay, so I don't know what else to tell people to inform people that the military is in fact taking actions, has been worldwide. Trump has taken over many different nation-state countries, taken out the bad regime and instituted a new democracy and had elections and did treaties of peace. Walking in front of the Queen, took down London. Jan Halper let that one out about the 650 planes to go retrieve the gold from the Vatican. I told people back then that I was aware that the Vatican had been raided at least 9 times. So, this stuff is happening whether you see it on TV or not, or that you're aware of it or not, is irrelevant. We are in a revolutionary war. What do you think Trump keeps talking about? He doesn't really talk about it now, but 1776. 1776 was the Revolutionary War. To throw off such despotism and tyranny. That Declaration of Independence is declaring the causes for the separation, as it states in the first paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph. So, the king being a tyranny, we have every right to throw that stuff off. So, again, there is a lot of things that are going on worldwide. And I mean, this is a revolutionary war for the entire world. Now, I just had somebody say the other day, oh no, none of that's happening, and all this is other stuff. This is all just a setup and giving them time to go underground to their underground safe places, bunkers, and all that. And I'm thinking, somebody's not clued in. They don't know. They don't get it. They don't get, well, because they haven't paid attention. So, there's going to come a point in time here, at some point, I think, that some of this is going to be put out. My understanding from what I had seen a long time ago was that some of the executions and some of the things that are going on were video recorded on VHS, not digital analog, so that it couldn't be accidentally leaked out. It's never seen the light of any kind of digital. And one part of there was talking about how there's going to come a time where they're going to do the emergency broadcast, and this stuff is going to be broadcasted for like 8 hours straight in loops for a few days or so. So, this is where we're at, folks. It's go time, and it's been go time since the Trump took office. Right, Mark? How you doing, brother? And it's erecting a multitude of new offices, sending hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. Oh, yeah. I forget my age here. Comment out here on Rumble. Farm Girl 86. So no one can watch it then. Most people don't even know what VCRs are anymore. Yes. Yeah, so VCR, I believe, is a video cassette recorder. Now, back in the day, before we had CDs and DVDs, we had cassettes. Like for audio, we had cassette tapes. For video, we had larger cassette tapes. And there was actually two, the Beta. He didn't want to sell out, so they created their own. But before that, there wasn't anything. Well, actually, no, we had Super 8. We had a Super 8 camera when I was a kid, which we actually used that to videotape Mount St. Helens when it blew up. It was out on Frenchman's Bar on the beach. Come walking back in and went, whoa, wow, look at that. Just as Mount St. Helens, we did, I don't know, like 2 or 3 rolls of film on that, and they stole the footage when we went to have it developed, because it was like a clear shot. It's like right there. Really, really, really good footage. And but yeah, I got to see it and live through it. Mount St. Helens. All the ash in the air and cleaning up trash bags full of ash and putting them in the trash. Pretty crazy time. But yeah, I can't forget 8 tracks. Yep, 8 tracks and 45s, 33s. Yeah, I spun a few records and played some 8-track in my day as well. We're Gen Xers, that was the era. for all that good, happy stuff. Generation before me was just getting into electronics, right? So, but even video games was essentially my era, or just a hair before with Pong. But even I remember Pong, Odyssey, Odyssey 2, then the Atari. Yeah, things are different, I'll tell you that. Right? Yeah, CDs are even a kind of a obsolete thing anymore. Um, Everything's just digital. I mean, at the end of your fingertip, click on something and it's right there. Um, Technology, I don't know what would actually happen if we had like a serious blackout, or like say if we had an EMP and it took out electronics. I wonder how many people would actually survive past like week, maybe 2 weeks. I think we'd have total chaos and people killing each other and dying in the streets within a week. How many people have any way of, food storage, water storage, or have any skills about living off the land? I wouldn't know anything about any of that kind of stuff, but. Hey, Scrimshaw, good to see you on here. Thanks for being here. But yeah, some of this stuff's coming down, and like I was saying before, folks, and I've been saying this for a while. When the military does this, and they come in and take everything down, the deep state, the corrupt state, we're going to have to reassemble our government de jure. And that's over there with the nationalassembly.net, and that's national-assembly.net. And our weekly calls are there Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Eastern. That's, where we're trying. Michigan and Alaska. Michigan was the first one clear back in 2012. Okay, and this is the stuff that Carl Miller was involved in, that in 2014 when I come across his videos, I was like, I want to find that stuff. I want to find what he's talking about. That what he was referring to is the Project Blue Book and well, I think the bar needs to go away real soon. So, it's our time, folks. And again, all political power is inherent in the people. It is up to us. And I had a meeting there on Saturday with some younger people, and I was talking about certain things, and it's like, I guess like the main range of the younger men that were there, 32 and under, and you'd be surprised what 20 years age difference would make. Like I was asked, haven't you ever watched Fifth Element? It's like, what? No, never even heard of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really getting old. Fifth Element, one of my faves, all-time faves. But there's a funny question out there. Are we going to need car insurance when everything goes down by the military? Well, I don't think so. I don't think Might have to check your extended warranty though. Yeah, I know. I know. Comment out here on Rumble. Marty pants. It's just slowly dripping out. But until folks really uh, will face, until folks really will face and research the truth, nothing will change. Well, I can guarantee it's going to change no matter what. The people got to wake up. We have been lied to and conditioned for over 100 years. With T is what you left off there. I don't know if you just probably ran out of ability to. Yeah, you only got 200 characters. But the thing is it doesn't matter. This was done in a way uh, to wake people up. There's a lot of people out there. Again, I've said this before. There's a lot of people out there that have decent jobs, what would be considered the middle class people. And they go to work. They're good little slaves. They pay their taxes. They go and buy all their nice fancy little toys. And they're able to go have fun and enjoy life, at least to a certain extent. And they don't think anything's wrong. They think the law is the law. There's nothing wrong with that. And the cops don't do anything wrong. Everything's all hunky-dory. Just don't break the law. What law? Since when is government supposed to be interfering in our private lives? I thought government was instituted, the intent, the fundamental principles of the intent of instituting government was to secure these rights. So, what happened to that? Well, if you caught my last show 2 weeks ago now, because I took last Monday off, I sat down here and I'd been here for a while and it was just like, I'm just burnt. Almost was going to do the same thing again tonight, but because I've been sitting here all day working on paperwork and I finally got my paperwork done. I was trying to get it filed by 5 o'clock today and I just didn't make it. So, but that'll be filed tomorrow. And it's the motion for judgment of acquittal based on what happened in the trial and the two separate motions I made. Now I'm putting it in writing. I'll afford them the opportunity to put it in writing and respond with an objection to it. But I can tell you right now, I hammered the crap out of it with some real law, the history of the law, some of the stuff that I shared 2 weeks ago from Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England regarding the right to trial by jury. So, I'm setting this up, and I put in there that this presents at least 4 different constitutional challenges, and I itemized the 4 constitutional challenges. And imagine that, the Idaho Code, that Code of Civil Procedure Act from 1881. So, Marty Pants out there on Rumble, if you seem new to me, I don't know, maybe you've just been kind of lurking and watching, but I haven't seen you comment before, and if you have, I missed it. But yeah, check out 2 weeks ago, the last video on Rumble there, and I exposed the Roman civil law, the Code. The Code is the Roman civil law, and that's what was in the Declaration of Independence about fundamentally altering our form of government, subjecting us to a jurisdiction foreign to our government and unacknowledged by our law, and subjecting us to pretended acts of legislation. That's in the Declaration of Independence. That's what they were talking about then. Getting into those bills of attainder, bills, pains and penalty. And I show the document here for Idaho, in 1881, the 11th legislative session for the territory of Idaho, that Code of Civil Procedure Act. And the third section in there that says the rule of the common law, that statutes and derogation thereof does not apply here, and the code is the law. It's all ran by the bar, folks. All these bar members, they're all members of that club. And what's that one comedian's name? He's like, it's a big club and you ain't in it. That's what he's, in part, what he's referring to. And even bigger than that, he's talking about the Satanist pedo ring club. So, this is all throughout history. And again, Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England kind of shows that stuff. And the little tidbit that I found there in Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 is like one of them pieces of that 10,000 piece puzzle that it goes, oh yeah, that one goes right there. It connects all of that. Okay. So now that, George Carlin, thank you, Diesel D's, and Alan Parrish out there, and, Patrick, Kenneth, Pastor Rick. Yeah, I keep forgetting his, George Carlin. Pretty funny stuff out there. Folks, we have to learn this stuff. Got a comment out here on Telegram. Please come to Burlington, Iowa. Sheriff's Department, county attorneys, and judges are all deep state money, right? It's everywhere. That corruption is worldwide. Worldwide. It's everywhere. It's a Roman civil law. This is what you want to talk about a new world order and one world government. That's what their plan has been for over 1,000 years. Oh, yeah. Well over 1,000 years, folks. These people, these families, they play a serious, long, generational game. This is taught through generations. Little tiny steps at a time. Over, 1,000 to 1,500 years. And then they get a little bit, and people wake up and go, wait a minute. No, knock it off. We're not buying it. We have a war. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Things kind of settle down a little bit. But within, 50 to 70 years, they're right back at their same old garbage trying to implement the Roman civil law, the code. So, this is, the knowledge of this. Once you learn this, then you realize, well, wait a minute. What is the law? Like it says in Bouvet's, is that the code is opposed to the laws of nature, the law of nations, and the common law. And it's all enforced through bills of pains and penalties. So, that's what's been subverted. And, the law of nations, written by Emery D. Vattel, and the laws of nature, which is promulgated by God, right? And the common law. Now, see, this is where these bar members out here talk about, well, the common law is stare decisis, case law. And now I've got a new one because that's what I've discovered in reading Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England. Reading means reading, folks. And actual root of the original common law, done by the Saxons, the Protestants, the Christians, is maxims of law and our customs. That'd be right out here, God's good book. That's where that comes from. So, dig into your Bibles, folks, and read and find those, maxims of laws in there and that kind of stuff that's God's law. And we need to fight back against this nationwide. Trust me, I'm like this close after being done with paperwork today and putting some stuff together. I'm getting pretty close to filing the Big Bang, and I'm pretty sure after I file that sucker, things are going to be, I don't know, probably going to get some phone calls, and who knows. Well, again, here on Rumble, all caps, false prophet, the uniformed people's infatuation and reverence for the courts and lawsuits is a big obstacle. Their answer is always class action lawsuit. No. No. It's, again, we need to learn law. I am man, creation of God. And the law of God is the law. And it's amazing. Leslie over here on Telegram. Yeah. It's more than a lawsuit. It's a petition to Congress. Now, despite what's been said over there on the call over there, I'm very well aware of the continuity of government now. And what's really going on and how to get where we need to go to deal with some of this stuff. And again, Trump keeps saying somebody ought to sue these people. Somebody ought to sue these people. Because he's only gotten down so far, just barely tip into the federal part of the government. Okay? There's still a lot of corrupt people out there. So, what he's wanting is people, I mean, this is what we're seeing, right? I've already covered the New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin, where that went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they said, "Oh, yeah, your right to keep and bear arms actually comes from the laws of nature, is a right of self-defense." And then the Rahimi case, and I got to find the case over there out of San Diego yet, but that was a federal district court judge who declared unlawful and unconstitutional the ban on semi-automatic weapons and the large capacity magazines out of California. Again, there's the change. Right? There's 3 cases right there in a row dealing with the right to keep and bear arms. So the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Rahimi case only went through out of Texas, the Fifth Circuit. And then the one out of San Diego, California, only went to the federal district court. So now it's down to the federal district court level where the judges are starting to rule correctly. So, there are plenty of things that we can do in the meantime. But, again, I highly recommend getting with your fellow man there in your particular nation state and reassembling government de jure and getting ready for when it does all just gets wiped out. We need to be prepared, or we're just going to be stuck under martial law. Just see out here on YouTube, Field's sidekick for a long time, David Hawkins. He just passed away about a month ago. My condolences to David Hawkins out there. So, right? Never Surrender is a good song. Oh. There's another showing my age. All right, let's dive into this just a little bit here. I've decided, imagine that, to start at the beginning and just, kind of read from the beginning instead of trying to skip around and I don't miss anything, right? Let's see. No? Is that it? Now, this is their little dissertation by the bar guys. Their suggestions for the study of the law, and this is a new addition to, again, to Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England. Anyways, this is their little dissertation about studying the law, and talks about something about, there's a place in here, I can't remember where it was at, but is that there was a change in the law. Yeah, there was most certainly a change in the law. What you're talking about is your frickin' Roman civil law, the code again. He cannot fail also to have it fully impressed upon his mind in the course of these investigations that there are some bounds to the authority of government, which exist in the very nature of our organized society and do not need to be pointed out by positive law. Right. It is possible that he may sometimes encounter a vague impression that government may rightfully do whatever it has the power to do, and that whenever a particular department of government or officer of any department has not been made responsible to any other, see, it's responsible, not accountable, to any other for the proper exercise of authority, the determination of such department or officer to do a particular act must be accepted as satisfactory and conclusive evidence that the act itself is rightful and legal. Such is not the theory of the American constitutions or of any government where rights are recognized and respected. That's the thing, because, see, the Roman civil law it's a body of law all of its own. It doesn't recognize your constitution. It doesn't recognize your rights. You only have privileges and that which the king dictates that you have. And that is the fundamental problem with the Roman civil law. There's no other law besides the Roman civil law. That is the law. Nothing else. What the bar members say is the law, what they write down, and whatever they enact there, that's it. They don't care about anything else. Every once in a while you'll get a case that goes through to appease the people, right? And then they just go and change whatever they need to change to skirt around it. Plain and simple. But, yeah, anyways. Such is not the theory of the American constitutions. Any government rights are recognized. The sovereignty with us is in the people. The sovereignty. with us as in the people. No, the people are the sovereign. And they have delegated to the agencies of their creation only so much of the powers of government as they deem safe, proper, and expedient. That is sovereignty. When the sovereign delegates certain powers, they are endowed with sovereignty. The power exercised must be within the great grant made, and if it be not, it is usurpation. That's an usurpation of power, whether the means of restraint are provided or not. The people even proceed deliberately and from a conviction of the absolute necessity for such action to impose restrictions upon their own authority. And they preclude themselves from the exercise of sovereign powers, except under the conditions of caution and deliberation, which they have previously by their written constitution imposed. It is not, therefore, to be readily inferred that they designed any department of government to exercise arbitrary authority. It is another common error to which our author gives no countenance, that constitutions in free states are established mainly for the purpose of giving effect to the voice of the majority, and that voice, whenever expressed in due form, is and should be of absolute force. Well, yes and no, depending on the subject matter jurisdiction, and then who is it supposed to apply to? That is the key to our republican form of government, is that we did not give government personal jurisdiction over man in the private. We drew that proverbial line in the sand and said, do not cross. You're to stand on this line, and you're supposed to defend us. And everything. Government was instituted. That is the intent of creating government, was to secure our rights from infringement by the government, by corporations, by manufacturers. The General Welfare Clause, to ensure that no manufacturer manufactures or imports a product that causes harm to the people. That's the General Welfare Clause. To make sure that we're happy, that we're not being harmed by anything foreign to us. And then if we got problems between us in a local town, city, even a county, or even the state, we take care of that on our own. That's what suits at common law is all about. All other suits are supposed to be in law. Article 3, Section 2, suits in law, and equity involving an equitable interest in land. That's why people have to read the whole thing. But, that's a suit in law, not a suit at law. Suits at common law are suits between man and man. Suits in law is the government against a corporation. That's the private versus the public. And I don't know, why does it talk about right here in Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England? Why does it get into the very first thing is private wrongs? And then in volume 2, book 4 gets into public wrongs. Oh, you mean there's the difference between the private and the public? That's right. Who's in the public? Well, if you're in the private, you can't be in the public. Well, not at the same time. You can't be on the clock acting as governor and claim that you're in the private. No, you're duty bound. You've been granted certain emoluments of that office, and you have a duty. You have to discharge the duties of that office because you're getting paid to do so. You become the servant. Now, this is where it was talking about common law and amphila and code. I wonder. That ancient collection of unwritten maxims and customs, which is called the common law. However compounded or from whatever fountains derived and subsisted immemorially in the kingdom, and though somewhat altered and impaired by the violence of the times, had in great measure weathered the rude shock of the Norman conquest. That's right. This had endeared it to the people in general, or endeared it, to the people in general as well, because its decisions were universally known, as because it was found to be excellently adapted to the genius of the English nation. In the knowledge of this law consisted great part of the learning of those dark ages. It was then taught, says Mr. Sheldon, in the monasteries, in the universities, and in the families of the principal nobility. The clergy in particular, as they then engrossed almost every other branch of learning, so like their predecessors, the British Druids, they were peculiarly remarkable for their proficiency in the study of the law. So, this is where we need to get, folks. We need to gain this knowledge. We have to study. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, and we get what we get because it's a lack of knowledge. So please, take the time. Watch my educational series. It gives you one hell of a jump start. Okay, both YouTube and my Facebook page. Kirk's Law Corner there, and Kirk's Law Corner over there. And the links to that are on my website, kirkslawcorner.com, to all my social medias here. So, what did I miss over here? Lincoln Room in Idaho. And to the Republic. This particular book here is Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England. Well, got to learn the maxim of law that the law of equity may only be resorted to where the common law is deficient. So you have to go through the common law first. See, primary law first. And equity has been twisted so bad. You think, oh, equity is an equitable interest. Like in land. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, James, about the Lincoln Room in Idaho. Kirk knows. Oh, yeah. Back in the day, down there at the state capitol, when I stood toe-to-toe with all the state troopers, trying to pretend like that they're the military. Bunch of Gestapo coming in there and arresting these people that were exercising their right to sit wherever the heck they wanted to within the general public domain. And that jackwagon up there used his position of employment as an advantage to Our friends from the back gonna come remove these guys. Yeah, you don't have that authority, dude. Right? Yeah, one trooper tried to plead the Fifth Amendment. I don't know. You're all public servants. And yeah, they most certainly like to hide behind their mask. So we couldn't really see who they were. And I really thought that I got through at least a little tiny bit to one of them. Gave him my card. Never talked to me. Never called, no email, nothing. I think that they're ashamed that they don't know. And they don't want to talk to people like me who do know. All right, back to the good this particular good book. Not the good book, but this is the things that we need to be taught here. This needs to come back. It needs to come back in our schools. It needs to be taught in church. We need to get back to they were particularly remarkable for their proficiency in the study of the law. And I don't speak Latin, so I have a heck of a time speaking English sometimes. So, is the character given in them soon after the conquest by William of Malmesbury. Malmesbury. The judges, therefore, were usually created out of the sacred order, as was likewise the case among the Normans, and all the inferior offices were supplied by the lower clergy, which has occasioned their successors to be denominated clerks to this day. But the common law of England being not committed to writing, but only handed down by tradition, use, and experience, was not so heartily relished by the foreign clergy, who came over hither in shoals during the reign of the Conqueror and his two sons, and were utter strangers to our Constitution, as well as our language, the Magna Carta, by the way. And an accident, which soon after happened, had nearly completed its ruin. A copy of Justinian's Pandects, being newly discovered at Amalfi, soon brought the civil law into vogue all over the west of Europe, where before it was quite laid aside. Now, this is where Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 comes in, because it lays out that was actually found in 1130 AD. Right there. Circa AD 1130. That's when that happened. That's that U right here. In a way, I wish it would have never been so discovered. But, that's the Roman civil law, the code. And here Blackstone's talking about it. And this gets into that usurper Stephen, the king from 1135. And I thought it was 1149, it was 1154. Let's see, laid aside, and in a manner forgotten, though some traces of its authority remained in Italy and the eastern provinces of the empire. This now became in particular manner the favorite of the papist clergy, who borrowed the method and many of the maxims of the canon law from this original. Well, canon law comes from the Roman civil law. The study of it was introduced into several universities abroad, particularly that of Bologna, where exercises were performed, lectures read, and degrees conferred in this faculty as in other branches of science, and many nations on the continent just then beginning to recover from the convulsions consequent upon the overthrow of the Roman Empire, and settling by degrees into peaceable forms of government, adopted the civil law. Well, if you're throwing over the Roman Empire, why are you adopting the Roman civil law? Being the best written system then existent, as the basis of their several constitutions, blending and interweaving it among their own feudal customs, in some places with a more extensive and others more confined authority. Nor was it long before the prevailing mode of the times reached England, the Theobald, a Norman abbot, being elected to the See of Canterbury, and extremely addicted to his new study, brought over with him in his retinue many learned proficients therein. And among the rest, Roger, surnamed Varson, placed at the University of Oxford, to teach it to the people of this country. But it did not meet with the same easy reception in England. Because that's what the Magna Carta was about in 1215. Guarantee you, now that I know, where a mild and rational system of laws had been long established, as it did upon the continent, and though the monkish clergy devoted to the will of a foreign primate received it with the eagerness and zeal, yet the laity, who were more interested to preserve the old constitution and had already severely felt the effect of many Norman innovations, continued wedded to the use of the common law. King Stephen immediately published a proclamation forbidding the study of laws then newly imported from Italy, which was treated by the monks as a piece of impiety, and though it might prevent the introduction of the civil law process into our courts of justice, yet did not hinder the clergy from reading and teaching it in their own schools and monasteries. So, this is the thing that happened right here. It says he's laying it out, the time period and who it was, this King Stephen. That was the usurper. Okay, we're going to get into this. Absolute rights of individuals. Okay? I don't know if this... Yes, we need to start here at the very beginning of this. Okay, so this is actually the essentially the beginning of Book 1, Chapter 1. Although it did count some of these other as sections, I believe. Yep, it did. So that is part of the commentaries. But I want to get through this because this is some really good stuff. Now, Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 kind of covers some of this stuff, but this is a little bit more in depth than Bouvet's. So the very first thing here is the objects of the laws of England are so very numerous and extensive that in order to consider them with any tolerable ease and perspicuity, it will be necessary to distribute them methodically under proper and distinct heads. I wonder if I'll make that just a little bit bigger. Under proper and distinct heads. Okay? Avoiding as much as possible divisions too large and comprehensive on the one hand and too trifling and minute on the other. both of which are equally productive of confusion. All right, so now, as municipal law is a rule of civil conduct commanding what is right and prohibiting what is wrong, or as Cicero, or Circo, and after him, our Blackstone, have expressed it, Sentitio Justia prohibiting contrary, it also follows that the primary and principal objects of the law are rights and wrongs. Now, again, this municipal law is the code. We're supposed to have statutes. That's where our founders changed our form of government. They're not law, it's policy. Spelled P-O-L-I-C-E, policy. Not police, but policy. In the prosecution, therefore, of these commentaries, I shall follow this very simple and obvious division, and shall, in the first place, consider the rights that are commanded, and secondly, the wrongs that are forbidden by the laws of England. Rights are, however, liable to another subdivision, being either first, those which concern are annexed to the persons of men, and are then called jura personam, or the rights of persons. So, keep in mind here, they really like their persons and subjects and individuals. So, what we need to do is we need to change those words out for man. These are rights of man because God created man. The king didn't create man, God created man. So, or they are secondly such as a man, but rights of persons, or such as man may acquire over external objects or things unconnected with his person. So, kind of backwards. It would be rights of man, and then secondly, those would be acquired rights. Those would be rights of persons, contracts, which are styled jura rerum, or the rights of things. Wrongs also are divisible into first private wrongs, which being an infringement merely of particular rights, concern individuals only, and are called civil injuries. Okay? But in the common law, we call that a common law trespass or tort. But it's a common law trespass. So keep in mind, this is prior to America becoming the nation in 1776. Now there are, a person like, the owner for McDonald's. McDonald's is a person, but he would be the president or the CEO. Those are the persons. So keep that in mind, that even like father, mother, son, and daughter, those are persons, but they're still man. Man has to come first before anything else. Okay? So I don't want to confuse people about that and trying to tell people that persons, they don't exist at all, which technically speaking they don't. They're all just fictions. It's just what we recognize. So this is that clear distinction. Person really is about that in propria persona, in your proper person. Okay? Or jura personarum. I thought it was personam. But let's see. An object of things unconnected with this person, which are styled jura rerum, and the rights of things. Wrongs also divisible into first private wrongs, which be an infringement merely of particular rights, concern individuals only, and are called civil injuries. Secondly, public wrongs, which, being a breach of general and public rights, affect the whole community and are called crimes and misdemeanors. It affects the whole community and are called crimes and misdemeanors. Public offenses. You kind of have to be a public servant. You got to be in the public in order to commit a public offense, right? Because fundamentally and principally, the right to life, which the reciprocal of that is murder. See, that comes from the common law. Thou shalt not commit murder. How can that be a public offense when it's actually mala in se? It's morally wrong. Period. That's not mala prohibita, prohibited conduct. That comes from the law of God. That's in the private. Entirely speaking, would be a suits at common law. Liberty, we'll get down to that. But we need to separate these two things. The difference between private and public. Now, I've noticed over the last few years, and I put it out a couple different cases there that talked about, that's a common law trespass. And I said, look, the common law is coming back. But again, I don't think anybody realizes that the code is the Roman civil law. They just think that that's just the way things are because it's been that way for so long. There's nobody alive today that remembers in 1881 like it was before 1881, before they started implementing the Roman civil law, the code again. I mean, man, they'd be 131 years old if they were born in 1881. Rights are liable to another subdivision being the first those which concern or... Okay, we already went through this. Okay. Affect the whole community are called crimes and misdemeanors. The object of the laws of England falling into this fourfold division, the present commentaries will therefore consist of the four following parts. Okay? Number 1, the rights of persons with the means whereby such rights may be either acquired or lost. The rights of things, which the means also of acquiring and losing them. Private wrongs or civil injuries with the means of redressing them by law. And public wrongs or crimes or misdemeanors, which the means prevention and punishment. Now, notice it doesn't say anything about rights of man, and it says that they all can be lost, that they can either be acquired or lost. This is why our founders said, nope, we have these unalienable rights. You can't place a lien on them. We can't lose them. We can't even give them away because they didn't come from us. They don't come from man. They come from God, the laws of nature. But still, nonetheless, let's get that straight. In between, reading between the lines here, get the gist of what these rights are. And more specifically, the fact that at this particular point in time, in England, this is the way it was in England, and I can tell you right now, they were left behind starting in 1606 when the people started migrating over here with the first charter of Virginia in 1606. And we started, basically, like it's been said, that they brought with them the English common law, but only those parts that were conducive to the public weal. And they slowly started creating our republic, our different form of government here. Started creating, I don't know, general assemblies instead of parliament. They were changing this form of government from a monarchy to our republic. It just took, well over 100 years of fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. So, we are now first to consider the rights of persons with the means of acquiring and losing them. Now, the rights of persons that are commanded to be observed by the municipal laws are of two sorts. First, such as are due from every citizen, which are usually called civil duties, and secondly, of them belong to him, which is more popular acceptation of rights or jura. Both may indeed be comprised in this latter division, for also social duties of the relative nature. At the same time that they are due from one man or set of men, they must also be due to another. Oh, so you mean like common law rights? Rights is the law that are common to all. But again, every time you hear that civil crap, that's the Roman civil law, municipal law. It's all Roman civil law, the code. Must also do to another. Apprehended will be more clear and easier to consider many of these duties required from rather than as rights belonging to particular persons. Thus, for instance, allegiance is usually and therefore most easily considered as the duty of the people, and protection as the duty of the magistrate. And yet they are reciprocity, but reciprocally the rights as well as duties of each other. Allegiance is the right of the magistrate, and protection the right of the people. See, they're supposed to be protecting the right of the people. Persons also are divided by the law into their either natural persons or artificial. Natural persons are such as the God of nature formed us. So, here we go again. It's not called natural person, it's just called man, because God created man. He didn't create persons. Artificial are such as are created and devised by human laws for the purposes of society and government, which are called corporations or body politic. Keep in mind, again, this is the English, law of England at the time, okay? Not the way the Christians, the Protestants, looked at it over time, that we're creations of God. We are man, not persons. The right of persons considered in their natural capacities are also of two sorts, absolute and relative. Absolute, which are such as appertain and belong to a particular men, merely as individuals or single persons. Now see again, individuals, that's a corporation term. That's a corporate term. You got members, which are like the board, and the president, the board, and all that good stuff. Those are the members, and then individuals are like the employees. I thought individual meant one, like as in individual one. No, individuals, this is a jurisdiction. This is the diction underneath a corporation. And so would single persons. See, they're even trying to confuse you there. Oh, individuals or single persons. One person, persons. Yeah. Relative, which are incident to them as members of society, and standing in various relations to each other. The first, that is absolute rights, will be the subject of the present chapter. Now, this is where it starts to get really good, because when you start applying this from the laws of nature, and that these rights are absolute. unalterable. Can't be taken, bought, sold, traded, given away, taken away, except by the law of the land or judgment of our peers. But once we're done with that, then we still have all these rights. Now, some of them may be diminished a little bit for a time. Now, unless you're talking about murder, then a capital crime, yeah, well, you lose your life because you took somebody else's life. It's an eye for an eye. That's the way that works. All right. Those which are in their primary and strictest sense. The absolute rights of individuals, we mean those which are so in their primary and strictest sense, such as would belong to their persons merely in a state of nature. See, it's a state of nature, a state of being, and which every man is entitled to enjoy, whether out of society or in it. So, either in the private or in the public. But with regard to the absolute duties which man is bound to perform, considered as a mere individual, it is not to be expected that any human municipal law should at all explain or enforce them. That's right. None of their business. That's off limits. If it's an absolute right, you don't have any authority over it. Servants. See, now remember, back here, again, they're still operating under the guise of a ruler, a monarchy, kings, princes, and all that kind of stuff, and you're an individual. You're a subject to the king, at a minimum. Okay? But I need people to realize that, obviously got to change some words, but they use man. Which man, but then they get into person, so you just, take it with a grain of salt here. But understand the principles. This is the key of, reading between the lines here, is grasping the principle of what the right is. Okay? For the end and intent of such laws being only to regulate the behavior of mankind as they are members of society and stand in various relations to each other, they have consequently no concern with any other but social or relative rights. Okay, so that's saying that these are absolute rights are off limits, and none of their the municipal law should at all explain or enforce them. It has nothing to do with that. That's that American Jurisprudence, Volume 15, Civil Rights, Section 2. Natural rights and civil rights have absolutely nothing to do with the establishment, support, or management of government. That's right. They don't get to regulate those rights. That's why they're called absolute. As they're members of society and stand in various relations to each other, they have consequently no concern with any other but social relative duties. Now, let a man therefore be ever so abandoned in his principles, or vicious in his practice, provided he keeps his wickedness to himself, and does not offend against the rules of the public decency, he is out of the reach of human laws. Oh, you sovereign citizen, you! How dare you, Blackstone, say that the public law doesn't apply to everybody? That if you're in the private, you could be as wicked as you want, and it doesn't apply to you. Now that's again, this is where we can't regulate every single man in the private. What he does in the privacy of his own home, the Fourth Amendment. He has the right of the people. The right of the people. That's a man. to be secure in their persons, papers, houses, and effects from unwarranted searches and seizures. Can't come in there. What we do in the privacy of our home is our business. Plain and simple. But it's funny that Blackstone says it here, right? You sovereign citizen, you Blackstone. But if he makes his vices public, though they be such as seem principally to affect himself, as drunkenness or the like, they then become, by the bad example they set, of pernicious effects to society, and therefore it is then the business of human laws to correct them. Now keep in mind, what they're actually talking about here is in England, again, under the king, claiming this, that we got to save your soul, and this is the moral thing. You're not supposed to be drinking, and you're not supposed to be in public. Like, you drink in the private, yeah, that's okay. But don't do this out in the public. No, not here in America. Hell, we set up bars and saloons all over the place. People drink and drive all the time. It's only when you cause harm is there a right to a cause of action. I don't care if you do education about it. But again, way back in the day, back in like 1993, 94-ish, on the books, we used to have the, if he seems like he's drunk, the officer's supposed to pull him over. Hey, Chuck, how you doing, man? Can can they hold a conversation? Do they seem alert enough to follow them home? Because they basically had three options. One, to say, hey, let me, how far you got to get to your home? Oh, yeah, Chuck, I know you live right down here. I'll follow you home. Let's see if you get it home. Or if they, seem to be just a little bit too drunk and, hey, man, can I call somebody to come get you? Or can I give you a ride home? If you're just a few blocks down the road, and yeah, come on, Chuck, I know you. I'll give you a ride home. Come on, buddy. That's protecting and serving the people. Not the way that it's been twisted to go, oh, you got to go to jail for this because I got to protect you from everybody else. Or I got to protect everybody else from you. I can see how it can be construed that way, right? But that would be the intent, to pull him over to begin with and offer him a ride home because he hasn't harmed anybody yet. And then if they were just flat out too drunk, you didn't know him, you couldn't figure it out, who to call, anything like that, then you took him to the drunk tank. And then in the morning when they sobered up, you gave them a ride back to their car. Or called somebody to come get them. That was in the Idaho Code. I was blown away when I found that. But anywho, let's really get into this here. Public sobriety is a relative duty. I'm going to skip over some of this crap because we need to get into what the absolute rights are. Hence, it follows that the first and primary end of human laws is to maintain and regulate these absolute rights of individuals. That's right, to protect them, to secure them, to keep everything else from infringing upon these absolute rights. Such rights as are social and relative result from and are posterior to the formation of states and societies, so that to maintain and regulate these is clearly a subsequent consideration, and therefore the principal view of human law is, or ought to always be, to explain, protect, and enforce such rights as are absolute, which in themselves are few and simple. And then such rights as are relative, which arising from a variety of connections, will be far more numerous and more complicated. Well, I kind of agree with that. But let's start with some basic fundamental principles. Let's start with some basics here. Again, we have to learn the law. Knowledge is power. notice it says, these will take up a greater space in any code of laws, and hence may appear to be more attended to, though in reality they are not, than the rights of the former kind. Let us therefore proceed to examine how far all laws ought, and how far the laws of England actually do, take notice of these absolute rights and provide for their lasting security. Blackstone is telling us, man, take notes here. Inscribe this on your brain so that they will last, so that our security of these rights will last, because when we don't know, other people get away with it. And they prey on our ignorance. The absolute rights of man, considered as a free agent, endowed with discernment to know good from evil, and with power of choosing those measures. Gee, that sounds like the right of religion, the right of conscience. We'll get there. Appeared to him to be most desirable and usually summed up in one general appellation and denominated the natural liberty of mankind. This natural liberty consists properly in a power of acting as one thinks fit, without any restraint or control, unless by the law of nature. This is why the Roman civil law is opposed to the laws of nature, because man is free and independent of government because of this absolute right. Under the Roman civil law, you only have privileges. You have civil rights. You don't have natural rights. There is no law of nature in the Roman civil law. The code. The code is the law. What it says right there in Section 3 of that Code of Civil Procedure Act of the 11th legislative session of the Territory of Idaho. Okay? Being a right inherent in us by birth, and one of the gifts of God to man at his creation. See? I am man, creation of God. I don't need Blackstone to tell me this, but some of y'all out there need to comprehend this right here, because this is your original status, and this is an absolute right. Are you of sound mind, or are you freaking insane? Not only does Genesis 1:26, 27, and 28 talk about this, and lays this out in the very beginning of the good book, Blackstone is reiterating it here. Yes, I hear on YouTube. Great, I love this one. Government is Latin for control the mind. Absolutely. The people control the minds of the persons that they create in the Constitution. Because remember, government is a figment of the imagination. We take those figments of our imagination and we put them down on paper. And we say the legislative branch has these kinds of powers. The executive branch has these powers. We control the minds of the men who receive the emoluments of those offices. So many people want to misconstrue that, government, mind control, they're supposed to be controlling our mind. No, we control the minds of the president. We control the minds of the governor. That's what that means. Because the Constitution, conscience, the mind, is the instrument of government. The mind of government. The mind control. So stop misinterpreting that government is mind control that it applies to the people. No, it's the people who create. See, that's where we get to the people are the sovereign, because sovereign means the power to create. And the people create the conscience or constitution, because that's what constitution is. It's conscience. That's why it's the constitution for such and such. Or it could even be said, constitution of. Constitution of or for. It's the mind of. Make sense now? All right. When he endued him, and it would be like, again, it's kind of like still some old English here, spellings, like policy. And I actually found it in here. Blackstone spells policy, Police. Endowed him with the faculty of free will. This is a very key word, key phrase. Because everything that they try to prosecute us for, they have to prove that we did it willfully and that we don't have the free will to choose. But see, this is an absolute right. Even in England at this time. Much more in America. But every man, now see, pay close attention to England here. But every man, when he enters into society, gives up a part of his natural liberty as the price of so valuable a purchase, and in consideration of receiving the advantages of mutual commerce, obliges himself to conform to those laws which the community has thought proper to establish. Okay. Now I know he does talk about this but see, this is the mind control. For those that are in commerce, to regulate commerce. In order to receive those advantages, profits, and gains, the emoluments of that corporation while acting in commerce. We're going to make sure that you follow this, and this. So that is the part we're talking about. You got to give up some of your sovereignty in the exchange for the emoluments and the advantages. But our founders drew the line between foreign commerce and private. That's why they declared that our economy is under capitalism, a free market, that where we have the right to contract, our right to contract is unlimited. And that the terms and conditions of the contract becomes the law. And the only exception with that contract is the contracts must be lawfully obtained. And the only exception to a lawfully obtained contract is fraud. That's it. Otherwise, you sign that sucker, you're bound by it. That becomes, the terms and conditions of that contract become the law. And there shall be maximum law, it's even in the Constitution, there shall be no law impairing the obligations of contract, with the exception of fraud. That's the exception to that rule of law, or maxim of law. For no man that considers a moment would wish to retain the absolute and uncontrolled power of doing whatever he pleases, the consequence of which is that every other man would also have the same power. And then there would be no security to individuals in any of the enjoyments of life. Political, therefore, or civil liberty. See how they try to bring that civil in there? So we have natural rights and political rights here in America. Over there, they call them civil privileges or rights, which is that of a member of society, is no other than natural liberty so far restrained by human laws and no farther, as it is necessary and expedient for the general advantage of the public. Hence we may collect that the law, which restrains a man from doing mischief to his fellow citizens, though it diminishes the natural, increases the civil liberty of mankind. Doesn't the law of natures talk about, I don't know, thou shalt not commit murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, no lying? Wouldn't that come from the laws of nature? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But again, this is England, and they're trying to get there, but still remain within their control of being a monarchy. Hence we may collect that the law which restrains a man from doing mischief, that's a key word, but that every wanton and causeless restraint of the will of the subject, whether practiced by a monarch, a nobility, esquires, or a popular assembly, is a degree of tyranny. Let's back that up. But that every wanton and causeless of action, causeless restraint of the will of the subject. See, now that gets really into that English language. Subject, whether practiced by a monarch, a nobility, or popular assembly, is a degree of tyranny. Nay, that even laws themselves, whether made with or without our consent, if they regulate and constrain our conduct in matters of mere indifference, without any good end in view, are regulations destructive of liberty. Whereas, if any public advantage can arise from observing such precepts, the control of our private inclinations in one or two particular points will conduce to preserve our general freedom in others of more importance. Kind of contradicting a little bit. By supporting that state of society which alone can secure our independence. Now, I can see certain things, yes, that would be beneficial to the society as a whole if we didn't exercise it within our community. Like, don't go out in your backyard and start target shooting, target practicing. Because it might shoot your neighbor. Because some people just don't have the common sense to think about that. So we might need to make that a city ordinance or regulation, right? That, hey, you can't really discharge a firearm inside city limits. Because there's too many frickin' people around. You might actually hurt somebody. You might actually kill somebody. By accident, of course. But, hey, unless you're actually acting in defense of yourself or coming to the aid and defense of your fellow man, no need to be discharging a firearm inside city limits. That's just a pretty good example. Right? Does anybody disagree with that? Kind of in the necessary safety and general welfare of the people of the community, that we would say, hey, no discharging firearms inside city limits here. Anybody disagree with that? So that's an inference here of how that would work. But they can't tell you can't carry it. Just not discharging it within city limits. Because I've never seen any kind of an armed weapon of any kind do anything all by itself. I've never seen one, make the cartridges and then load itself, cock itself, and then shoot. Anybody out there ever had one of those things happen? Now, I have seen and heard of, weapons going off by themselves. That has happened. Pretty rare. just to say the least. But it can happen. Thus, the statute of King Edward IV, which would be 3 Edward 4, yeah, great. You didn't even say what it was, which forbade the fine gentlemen of those times under the degree of a lord to wear pikes on their shoes or boots of more than 2 inches in length, was law that savored of oppression, because however ridiculous the fashion then in use might appear, the restraining it by pecuniary penalties could serve no purpose of common utility. But the statute of King Charles II, which prescribes a thing seemingly indifferent, a dress for the dead who are all ordered to be buried in woolen, is a law consistent with public liberty. Okay. For it encourages the staple trade on which in great measure depends the universal good of the nation, so that laws, when prudently framed, are by no means subversive, but rather introductive of liberty. For as Mr. Locke has well observed, where there is no law, there is no freedom. But then on the other hand, that constitution or frame of government, that system of laws, is alone calculated to maintain civil liberty, or natural liberty, which leaves the subject entire master of his own conduct, except in those points wherein the public good requires some direction or restraint, like the one I just gave. Okay? It's just within reason, right? Logic and reason. Not out of some wanton feeling. Got to have some logic and reason behind what is the evil that it would intend to prevent. To go over some more stuff of the Bible that I covered here not too long ago, out of my Founder's Bible, right? Ask that question. With anything that the legislature, further down the road, if you end up being part of, our de jure republic here, and you're elected as a representative or a senator or whatever we decide to create here, and you go to make something, ask yourself, what is the evil that this intends to prevent or to hold responsible? If you can't answer that question, you ought to be asking yourself, what is the intent of this legislation? Is it to diminish a right? Purposely, willfully? To subvert the law of your own creation? But that's a key question. Number one question to ask. What is the evil that this legislation is intended to prevent? The idea and practice of this political or civil liberty flourish in their highest vigor in these kingdoms, where it falls little short of perfection and can only be lost or destroyed by the folly or detriments of its owner. The legislature, and of course the laws of England, being peculiarly adapted to the preservation of this inestimable blessing, even in the meanest subject, very different from the modern constitutions of other states on the continent of Europe and from the genius of the imperial law, which in general are calculated to vest an arbitrary and despotic power of controlling the actions of the subject in the prince or in a few grandees. And this spirit of liberty, now we're getting into the spirit of the law, is so deeply implanted in our Constitution and rooted even in our very soil that a slave or Negro, the moment he lands in England, falls under the protection of the laws and so far becomes a free man, though the master's right to his service may possibly still continue. Now, I know that's a loaded statement there. It's though the master's right to his service may possibly still continue. He's not a slave. Not like, well, it does say slave or Negro. But it says the moment he lands in England falls under the protection of the laws, which is all men are created free and equal. And so far becomes a free man. What a crock of stuff that is. And over there in England, the absolute rights of every Englishman, which, taken in a political and extensive sense, are usually called their liberties, as they are founded on nature and reason, so they are coeval with our form of government, though subject at the times to fluctuate and change, their establishment, excellent as it is, being still human. At some times we have seen them depressed by overbearing and tyrannical princes, at others so luxuriant and even to tend to anarchy, a worse state than tyranny itself. I don't know. As any government is better than none at all. Well, I don't know. Under anarchy, you would have arms and you'd be able to defend yourself, and it would be up to us to defend ourselves. We wouldn't have a sheriff. You wouldn't have deputies. You wouldn't have 911. You got to take care of your own. I would prefer that over tyranny than seeing my fellow man being forced, human trafficked, enslaved under tyranny. I would choose anarchy over tyranny anytime, every time, all the time. Under anarchy, you don't have anybody telling you what to do. Under tyranny, you got somebody telling you every little bit of what you can and can't do, and we're going to come take your shit from you. Under anarchy, somebody comes up, like, no, I don't think so. That ain't going to happen today. Not today. But the vigor of our free Constitution has always delivered the nation from these embarrassments. And as soon as the convulsions consequent to the struggle have been over, the balance of our rights and liberties has settled to this proper level, and their fundamental articles have been from time to time asserted in Parliament as often as they were thought to be in danger. First, the Great Charter of Liberties. That would be like, the Magna Carta, which was obtained sword in hand from King John, and afterwards, with some alterations, confirmed in Parliament by King Henry III, his son, which charter contained very few new grants, but, as Sir Edward Coke observes, was for the most part declaratory of the principal grounds of the fundamental laws of England. Afterwards, by the statute called Confirmation Cartarium, whereby the Great Charter is directed to be... Whoa, what is going on over there? Okay, please try to refrain from putting massive dissertations from other stuff, okay? Pay attention. Let's see. Whereby the Great Charter is directed to be allowed as the common law. Are we saying that rights are the law? The Great Charter of Liberty is the common law? The law that's common to all? Is that what we're saying here? So, not only do we have the maxims of law as the root of the common law, but these are those customs. What are the customs? The Great Charter of Liberty, that we all recognize we're creations of God, man, and we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That is a custom. That we all recognize individual or separate from each other our own liberty, our own free will, so long as we do not cause harm to our fellow man. There's no cause of action. Okay. All judgments contrary to it are declared void. Copies of it are ordered to be sent to all cathedral churches and read twice a year to the people. And sentence of excommunication is directed to be as constantly denounced against all those that by word, deed, or counsel act contrary thereto, or in any degree infringe it. And that's the Magna Carta. Next, by a multitude of subsequent corroborating statutes, Sir Edward Coke, the first, reckons 32, whatever that means, from the first Edward to Henry IV, then, after a long interval, by the petition of right. Oh, what are we talking about? The right of petition? Which was a parliamentary declaration of the liberties of the people, assented to by King Charles I in the beginning of his reign. So, the right of petition really is more of a political right. It's not actually a natural right because it has to do with government and redress of grievances against public servants. Which was a parliamentary liberty of the people assented by King Charles I in the beginning of his reign, which was closely followed by the still more ample concessions made by the unhappy prince to his parliament before the fatal rupture between them, and by the many salutary laws, particularly the Habeas Corpus Act, passed under Charles II. To these succeeded the Bill of Rights, or Declaration, delivered by the Lords and Commons to the Prince and Princess of Orange. This would be that English Bill of Rights. February 13th of February 1688 was 1689. I don't know why he's saying 16. Well, they could be wrong, right? And afterwards, enacted in Parliament. Oh, okay. When they became king and queen. That's William and Mary. Which declaration concludes in these remarkable words, and they do claim, demand, and insist upon all and singular the premises as their undoubted rights and liberties. And the Act of Parliament itself recognizes, quote, all and singular the rights and liberties asserted and claimed in the said declaration to be the true, ancient, and indubitable rights of the people of this kingdom, end quote. Lastly, these liberties were again asserted at the commencement of the present century in the Act of Settlement, whereby the crown was limited to His present Majesty's illustrious house, and some new provisions were added. At the same fortunate era, the better securing our religion, laws, and liberties, which the statute declares to be the birthright of the people of England, according to the ancient doctrine of the common law. All right, folks. And this is just scratching the surface. We haven't even really gotten to the main part about absolute rights yet. So as you can see, reading means reading, and it takes time. Okay? So we're going to pick up from here next week because this is so good. I cannot pass this stuff up. I mean, as you can see over here, I've got all of these bookmarked. I figured out how to save it, so you got to click on the save up here, or I lose them. But yeah, like right here next is natural liberty. We do not give up, and it talks about abortion. Okay, we haven't even gotten down there yet. We're just barely scratching the surface of absolute rights of individuals. 128. All right? So, without further ado, there should have a little something there to go over real quick. All right, here's my website, kirkslawcorner.com. Okay? Now up here in this upper left-hand corner here is my Facebook page, which actually has educational series on it, minus 3 of the videos that I've added on the YouTube channel. Here's my Telegram channel. Now there's Patreon. That one's YouTube, and this one's Rumble. So those are the 4 here right now. I am on Twitter, but I don't really do much on there, but I'm thinking, or X now. Now that they've added X to my broadcast software as a free addition there, I got to figure that out one of these days when I get some time. Hey, Marka, how you doing? I found some good stuff in Blackstone's too to share with you. So, anyways, over here, well, I'll just back to Patreon. Patreon, that's, I've seen a lot of people asking me for my help. I do things on an individual basis. If you want to get on my Patreon, Wednesday nights I do the Wednesday night workshop. That's private, and some of them are recorded and then put out in a private place where those that are in there can watch those later in tier 3. Now, if you want one-on-one time with me, that's tier 4. Make sure you read Patreon, the pinned post there, how to use Calendly and set up a one-on-one scheduled meeting with me, and then send me a private message, which most of the time when somebody joins, I catch it, and I'll send you a private message giving you the information to Wednesday Night Workshop and the place to find these other videos, okay? Other than that, if you'd like to help support any other way, that's tier 1 and tier 2. One's $5, the other one's $10 a month. It's basically just to help support me here. Otherwise, you can send it to me, Kirk Pendergrass at Kirk's Law Corner LLC, 6477 West Fairview Avenue. Suite C is in Charlie, Boise, Idaho 83704. Cash wrapped aluminum foil, gold, silver coinage, money orders, postal money orders, any of that. Anyways, want to point another thing out here is the library tab right here. Now, treatise on arrest and false imprisonment, which was where I was hoping to get tonight, but 2 hours goes by real fast. Start here, folks. Seriously. Treatise on Arrest and False Imprisonment by Charles Wiseman. And then The Authority of Law. This one is the one about how statutes are supposed to be created, how they're supposed to look, and what their effects are. You know, this is in line with our republic. Not code. You're welcome, Karen. Thanks for being here. And then here's the Law of Nations, written by Emmer D. Patel. Report of the Commission on Unalienable Rights. Now, here, for the legislature type stuff, this is the Lex Parliamentary Americana. Elements of the law and practice of the legislative assemblies in the United States of America by Luther Stearns Cushion. This one over here is Mason's Manual Legislative Procedure, 2010 edition, that mentions and refers to Cushion so many times in this book, it's not even funny. So I don't even know why we have Mason's Manual Legislative Procedure when we've already got the law and practice over here. But hey, the bar likes to subvert certain things and hide, right? Hide. But I found this one through this one. And then here's Thomas Jefferson's Manual of Parliamentary Practice. And then here's an older 1953 Mason's Manual's Legislative Procedure. So you can look at the 1953 and the 2010 edition and see how much has changed in the verbiage that's changed between the two. There is some, but I can tell you right now, between the 2010 and the 2020 edition, the 2020 edition is bastardized, bad, horrible. The bar really got a hold of that one. Okay? And then Joseph Story's Commentaries on the Law of England. In three different volumes here. But in a way, I highly recommend reading Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England first. At this point, I haven't gotten there yet. Here's Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. And what is this? Maxims of Law in Law and Equity. Okay? Now, I would actually like to find one a little bit older, but this is one of the ones that I found. So, I put it up there. And then there's some miscellaneous stuff down here, but here's the 1776 report, the President's Advisory, 1776. There's the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776. Okay? For your reading, at your pleasure. Now, at the home screen here, and where happened to that? This is where, right here, you can click on that, and then little YouTube will show up. This is the first episode of 8. And then you click on that, go to my YouTube channel, go find the playlist, and look for the educational series playlist, and watch all those videos in a chronological order. Okay? Now the other thing is, here we are. national-assembly.net. Right here, this tab over here next to home says conference call info. Now you can get over here to the resources and get into some of that stuff if you want to watch some of the assembly supporting videos, important censored videos, 10 steps to an assembly. Here's a handbook. Here's the training manual 2000-25, which is the citizen manual that Oscar has gone over a few times. Many parts of it, one that Oscar and I did together. I've said this before, I'm not real happy with some of the verbiage in there and the way they twist it, but it's a general principles that you want to pick up out of there. But these guys are the real guys. This is where I'm working through. This is the legitimate one, the only ones that are doing this lawfully according to what the military has to say. And they are working with the military. Make no mistake. These folks have the support of the military. Okay? And then, his Hardline podcast, Jason. See, he's done with the Training Manual 2000-25. His podcast on assembly, and then his got a website now. All right, cool. All right, Jason. Yeah, get on here, folks. Get yourself situated. I mean that is if you want to do something, be a somebody. Uh-oh. I'm not sharing, am I? I can't believe it. No. Oh. Well. I guess everybody's seeing this, right? Okay. I didn't do the screen share, so I guess it's not like in Wednesday Night Workshop where I forget to do the screen share. I did forget to do the screen share, but everybody can see it because the way I capture my screen. So, good. There I am. All right. Speaking of which, thanks, Karen, for bringing up Jonathan. Jonathan Alexander, my brother down there in Arizona. He's headed down to the border, hanging out down there, putting his life at risk, okay? So, pray for his protection, full armor of God. God bless you, brother, for being down there and doing what you do, brother. Exposing the child trafficking, drug trafficking, and the foreign invasion. We're still trying to figure out what to do with the petition stuff because there's other stuff behind it that has to be done. You got to do a brief. And there's some evidence that's got to be organized. So we'll let that cat out of the bag once we get there. But yeah, hang in there. All right. All right. Thank you all for being here. God bless you all and have a wonderful night. And we'll catch you next Monday night. And those of you in Patreon Wednesday night, you're in for a treat. We'll see you then. All right. God bless. Have a wonderful night. Love y'all.